You're not getting any younger, so
You're not getting any younger, so you might as well travel.
Hey you! Yes, you! Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Perhaps the only true thing I know is that one day, every single one of us is going to die. It's hard to say and it's hard to hear, but my dear friends, it's the truth. It's something I try to think about daily, and I know that sounds morbid, but the idea of life is fleeting and life is short and life is something that you should live right now, right this very second, may just be the only way to make the idea of death something a little more digestible. Amber Rollo, a comedian and producer from NYC, joined me on the show this week to talk about a topic she knows quite well. Amber lost her mother to breast cancer at age 11 and her father to a heart attack at age 16. Amber's not afraid of death, but she is aware of it, and so it's changed the way she lives her life. She's the host of a podcast called Daddyless Issues, which focuses on what it's like to be an orphan, and interviews other artists who have lost one or more parents and how they've succeeded in life despite that. I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And as a reminder, life is really short, and you're not getting any younger. So go out there and do exactly what it is you desperately want to do. And one more thing, come join us in the You're Not Getting Any Younger secret Facebook group, where we talk about the kinds of tough topics you want to talk about, but you just don't know how. Hope to see you there. So welcome to the show, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
Of course. Thank you for having me in your home. I always like to point this out that technically we are strangers. We've never met before, and you have been kind enough to let me into your home in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. So thank you very much.
Of course. You're very welcome. I was happy to show off my diffuser to someone new.
It's really freaking cool. Like, if I lived in a Brooklyn apartment, this is what I would want it to look like. There's diffusers. It's super cool. It's around the corner from, like, a million great restaurants, too.
There's some scary masks on the wall.
I didn't notice that. You know what? That's how unobservant I am. I'm like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
What are the significance of those masks?
I couldn't tell you. My fiance got those from his mom. We do collect masks, like wherever we travel.
No
like,
way.
If in our bedroom there's like a little like wall of masks, but those ones are new, and I'm not sure exactly where they're from. But they have, like, for listeners, they look like little shrunken heads, and they have like horsehair on them as hair, and the hair is like rubber banded underneath the chin, which makes it extra creepy. I don't know what's up with that.
Now I'm a little scared, but I need to know more about this wall of masks. Please elaborate on the kinds of masks.
I don't know. Everywhere you go, I feel like, especially in South America, if you're traveling, they'll have colorful painted masks at a lot of the stores. Yeah. It's like something super easy and light that we could pick up, and we both like horror films. We like things like a little bit creepy. And so masks, I don't know, it tickles me. So so whenever we go somewhere, we pick one up. And
some people take home shot glasses, some take home postcards, you take home masks. Has TSA ever stopped you and been like, WTF, what is this?
No, I think they're pretty used to it.
Okay, good.
It's like artistic. I mean, yeah. It'd be different if we were collecting skulls or something. That would be...
Is that going to be the next thing?
I don't know. You just gave me the idea now. I wasn't thinking about it.
I love it. So whenever I have a guest on that I haven't met in person, I like to ask them get to know you questions. This is one question I just thought of on the way over here is, what's the last dream you remember having?
Ooh.
I know it's so random, but I'm so into dreams.
That is a good question. I do remember the last dream I remember having, but it was like very intense.
Was it?
Yeah. My little sister, who I love dearly, Megan, I had a dream that she was like taking me down through the internet and was like hacking all of my stuff.
No.
And like, yeah. And it was crazy because we get along very well.
Yeah.
And I don't know what was happening, but I woke up, very anxious, full of like cold sweat. She's not,
Did you call her, text her after and be like, hey, I had this dream about you, or no?
I completely forgot. And I just talked to her today. And this dream was like 2 days ago. There's been so much happening that I just totally forgot. I meant to talk to her about it, but then it slipped my mind.
She's going to hear it on this podcast and be like, Amber, what the hell are you thinking? That is pretty scary. It is. What's the last food you ate?
The last food I ate today, I had a Chipotle seitan sandwich.
Nice. Are you vegan?
I am not, but I like to, whenever there is an option to be vegetarian or eat vegetarian, I like to do it. I mean, I don't want too much meat in my diet. I'm like aware of heart health and also the sustainability of meat. I just,
I feel you completely. My final get to know you question is, what is one thing that you have or do in your morning routine?
I recently have been doing the artist way. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yep.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Most artists are.
Yep. I have a friend who promotes this all the time. It's like, Jen, you got to start doing this again.
You should. It's not, there's no shoulds, but it is really helpful for unblocking. So I'm on my 8th week right now in the 12-week program, and I've been doing my morning pages every day. So I write 3 pages of just stream of consciousness, whatever comes out in the morning. It's huge.
How does it make you feel after you're done doing that?
I love it. When I first started doing it, I was surprised at the anger I had in the morning. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really annoyed about a lot of things. But I was relieved. I was like, oh, well, at least I'm just pushing it out there.
Yep.
Most people wouldn't describe me as an angry person, so that did surprise me. But
thank God they're not reading your morning page.
No, not supposed to share them. I know that.
But it's so great that you do that, and I need to do that too, because a lot comes out of you when you wake up. Like, people wake up and you're supposed to start a brand new day, but it's so cliche to say that when you still have all the baggage from yesterday or even your dreams. Yeah,
I would like to start writing at night also, right before I go to sleep. She does suggest that in the book. She's like, Julie, she suggests writing like what your dreams and wishes are for the next day before you go to sleep. And I like that idea, but I just haven't made myself do it.
Well, at least you're doing morning pages. That's a brilliant first start to do. I have to get back on that train.
Yeah.
People around town describe you as a powerhouse comedian and producer. I love that statement because both of those jobs are so unique and also one job in itself. You know, being a comedian is hard enough, let alone now becoming a producer. So when did this career journey start for you?
This started for me about 5 years ago, and I was going to stand-up shows all the time. I loved comedy. I still love comedy. And I did find myself watching other comedians and thinking, I really like what they're doing. And also, I would do this. So I was coming up with ideas, and a big mantra of mine is don't hate, create.
Love it.
So I kept thinking of all these things I would do differently than the comedians on stage, and I figured I should just do it. So I did. And then being a producer just sort of came out of that, because the best way to get on stage is to make your own show. When you're new in New York and there's so many comedians and not a lot of stage time, the best way to do it is to just make your own show. And I have a lot of skills that go into producing. I used to work for a communications firm, so I know like marketing and social media and graphic design, so I could make my own flyers, I could make my own events. It's not a problem for me. So I started doing it, and I like in my shows to bring together comedians that wouldn't normally perform together. Because I feel like a lot of comedians in New York stick to their borough. There's like Brooklyn comedians, and there's Manhattan comedians, and there's Queens comedians, and there's, Harlem comedians. Like, they all are their own So I like to bring together groups that wouldn't normally see each other.
That's awesome. And same with people in New York. I feel like there's Manhattan people and they don't come to Brooklyn. And Brooklyn people, I don't blame them, don't want to leave Brooklyn. So I think that's super important. But when you were in the audience watching the comedians and then said, I have to do this, I have to do this, what was it like getting up on stage for your first couple of times and actually doing it?
My first couple of times on stage were open mics.
Uh-huh.
And in New York, when you're new to the comedy scene and you're doing an open mic, it's really, really, really scary. It's really hard. People do not care what you're saying on stage. They are other comedians. They're in their own head. They're taking notes on what they're going to write. They don't have any reason to care about what you're saying because they don't know you. And so that's intimidating. I bombed like a couple times. I've bombed many times since then, but it was really difficult. But I did make friends at mics and they would tell me, to come to the next show with them. And so I did, and I just kept doing it. The first time I did like a real show though, that was intoxicating. It was the greatest high I've ever had. It was a funhouse comedy, which used to be at this place called Passenger Bar in Williamsburg, but now it's at Pete's Candy Store, which is right down the street from here. And it's still every Wednesday. It's still one of my favorite shows. And I had been going to that show all the time, so I knew the comics there, I knew the audience there, I knew the people there. They wanted me to succeed, so they knew me. They understood the place I was coming from. It was an easy audience for me to succeed with. It was a really fun time, and I've been forever chasing that high.
The first couple times you got up there and you bombed, that's a really tough feeling to overcome. Most people might just say, you know what, I gave it a shot, it was fun, I'm done. How did you tell yourself, or how did you laugh it off? What did you do to keep getting back up on stage when you weren't getting a reaction, you weren't getting laughter, there wasn't anyone saying, Amber, you're the funniest person ever back then? Yeah,
and that still happens sometimes. And I think it's because I'm a very stubborn person.
When's your birthday? What month are you?
November 30th. I'm a Sagittarius.
I'm an Aries. We're good. We're a good friendship match because I think we're both very stubborn.
Yeah. So I want to prove people wrong.
Amen. Me too.
And you know what? I think that's a good, I don't know. It's a good way to push myself forward. I have no problem with, growing through stubbornness.
Yeah. When you started off in comedy, how did you realize I want to make a career out of this? Because a lot of people enjoy comedy. They take stand-up comedy classes. They do open mics. They attempt to pursue it, but they never view it as a career. And I always admire people who view comedy as a career and pursue it in any aspect. So what did you tell yourself, or what kind of roadmap did you have to say, I'm going to transition into making this my career, my life?
I'm not really a roadmap type of person.
Love it. Neither am I. I just use these words because other people, I guess, are.
I know. I've heard these words before.
I don't know what they mean.
Lists and roadmaps are really not
Plans.
My deal.
Hey, good for you. Love it.
But I don't know. I have dealt with a lot of depression in my life. I've dealt with struggle in my life. I have, the podcast called Daddyless Issues. I've dealt with things in my life that make me realize that if I'm going to be here, I should get as much joy and excitement out of it as possible. Yeah. And this is what I love doing. So why would I not do it as much as possible?
Amen to that. Tell us about what it's like to be a female comedian in this space. I'm sure you get a lot of extra added bonuses of challenges and things coming your way. And there's not a lot of female comedians.
Yeah, there is actually a lot of female comedians, but still the ratio is uneven for sure. And I think part of that is because open mics can be so scary. And there are some scenes where anybody is allowed to come to an open mic, right? And it's this space where you get a stage and a microphone and you get to talk to people and say whatever you want. So that attracts a lot of unbalanced human beings and a lot of 20-something white, angry incel men, And they then, when they see women in the audience, and I've experienced this many times myself, they will get mad at the women in the audience because they represent all women to them, or their mom, or
Wow,
whatever.
really?
Yeah. So I think that scares away a lot of women, and that's really unfortunate. I believe really strongly in creating spaces that are more friendly to women and more friendly to the LGBT community. I am involved in producing shows for both women and non-gender conforming people and people in the LGBT community. So I think making those spaces is really important, and then getting like little buddies, getting a buddy to come to a mic with you is really, really, really helpful.
Yeah.
I was at a mic last night where I was the only woman there.
Wow.
And I knew a couple of the guys, so I was okay, but there were a few unstable men there that would make me feel unsafe if I didn't know anybody else.
Do you feel like as a woman in this type of industry, because there's a lot of industries that are very male dominated and women are trying to break into and they face a lot of issues, do you feel like you have to work harder? Do you feel like you have to stand up for yourself? Do you feel like you have to present yourself in a certain way?
Yeah, I feel that I have to work harder and stand up for myself and present myself in a certain way as a woman in life in general. But yes, especially in comedy, you have to be aware. I think any person that is doing comedy should be aware of the vessel that they're in and the way that the audience is going to perceive that vessel, and then either go with that assumption or fight that assumption. And being a woman is definitely part of that. Sometimes when I am going to go to a show, I'll dress down so that I don't look too intimidating to the audience or distracting.
Just so sad. It's
which is
sad.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, why couldn't you wear heels and a dress if that's what you felt like on a Wednesday night? But
yeah. And then there are times where I'll dress in a fur coat and a dress, and then I'll come out with that energy and talk about, I used to be a stripper. I've dealt with male-dominated rooms before, and I'm not afraid of them, but it is something you definitely have to think about. Yeah. As far as that's the audience side, but the producer side, there are definitely producers out there who are not artists, who are men who take advantage of their position of power. And I've encountered them as well. And it sucks because then those shows and those avenues are just closed to you unless if you want to deal with that. And I don't. I've had to close off avenues to myself because I didn't want to deal with misogynistic, abusive producers.
What do you think the future of this industry is going to be? Because I feel like in the past couple of months and years, there's been a lot of light shined on this finally in the entertainment industry. What changes do you see in the next couple of years for women, whether they're going to be comedians or actresses or producers or directors or just really diving into the entertainment world?
Something that I like seeing more and more is that women are making their own stuff and becoming their own bosses. And I think it's becoming more and more of a possibility for just the average woman. I mean, I can start a podcast and have a Patreon and actually make rent doing that. And that was never a possibility before. I mean, I have some differing thoughts on the share economy or the side hustle economy, but I do like that openness and possibility. And so I think, women are just making it themselves, doing their independent films, making their own podcasts, making their own shows. Yeah.
Which is so cool. Speaking of podcasts, you started a podcast called Daddyless Issues, the Orphan podcast that talks about people who have lost one or more parents. What made you want to start this podcast?
Well, I actually was super interested in the idea of orphans being the center of a lot of stories. I mean, if you look at fairy tales and comic books and movies, I mean, Cinderella, Harry Potter, Batman, most of them are centered on orphans, and it's like a common cornerstone for a main character.
Yeah.
And I was interested in why that was, and like what people's understanding of orphans were, because I myself lost my parents. My mom passed away when I was 11 and my dad when I was 16. And I knew that it had a lot to do with who I became as an adult, especially because it was in character defining ages that I lost them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was curious about this like fascination that I saw in fiction around orphans, but then, you know, people were more uncomfortable when I talked about the real life story, the real life example of it. So I sort of wanted to break that down. And I knew this other comedian, Chanel Ali, who's my co-host, and I knew she grew up in the foster care system. And I knew that she talked a little bit about it on stage, but like, it can be a hard topic to grapple with. So I approached her about this idea for the podcast. And first I wanted to talk to people about their favorite orphans in fiction. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, no, you know what? I want to go for it more head on. We want to talk to people who have lost their parents and talk to them about how they did it, how they're surviving despite that, how they're thriving, how they're, you know, to look at the extreme silver lining, but like what skills they learned because of those experiences.
Yeah. And
I think it's to borrow from like Nanette. Did you watch the Nanette? Okay. There's tension in comedy.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what drew me to comedy to begin with, is that I deal with struggle through laughter.
Interesting.
And it's a release valve of sorts. So she talked about like building the tension and then releasing it, but there's already all this tension in our lives, and it's cool to be able to be open about it.
How did you realize that you dealt with tension with laughter? What point of your life did you realize that was your way of coping?
Funny story. I think the first example that comes to mind is at my father's memorial service. My sisters and I, had to make some sort of speech. And I was 16, my little sister was 14, and I have a sister who was 2 years older than me, who was 18. And we made an acrostic poem about my dad with his name. It was really silly. It was really dumb. And we like sort of roasted him a little bit in it, but like in a very nice, cheesy way.
Yep.
And yeah, that felt really good and therapeutic to me. My dad was always joking. Like, he was such a cheeseball. So I think it was partly my family, and then going through these things and trying to grapple for what sort of tools worked best.
It's an interesting topic because I don't think people talk about what an orphan means. To be honest, I did not realize what it meant because I only thought in my naive world that it meant you just didn't have parents when you were born. You were born and someone gave you up for adoption and that became your life. I didn't realize it also meant that you could have lost one or more parents in your life. And that's very interesting to know.
Yeah, we go by the UN definition of orphan, which means you lost one or more parent through death or abandonment before you're 18. We even open it up beyond that to after you're 18, because I don't think anyone is really an adult at 18 years old.
No.
Absolutely
or
not.
30.
These days. Yeah, or 30.
Or any age,
no.
But yeah.
So, yeah, I like opening up the term. I think that a lot of people do have like just these ideas in their head about what it is, what orphan means, without ever really exploring it. Some people are like, you have to work in a factory. Some people are like, you have to be a chimney sweeper. Some people are like, their parents had to be killed in front of you. I don't know. So it's fun to open it up a little bit and actually bring some people into that term.
Definitely. I mean, because it's not a term you hear often. You lost your mother when you were 11 years old. Before that happened, had you ever lost anyone else in your life? Did you have any experience with death before that?
I did, yeah. My great aunt. We didn't have many, like, my dad was an old dad. And he his parents were already passed away by the time we were born, but he did have his aunt still alive, Aunt Eve, and she passed away when I was, I don't know, like 5 or 6, but it didn't really mean too much to me. I knew that she was older. I knew that she had lived a long and cool life. She used to be a Rockette.
Oh my goodness.
She like traveled the world dancing. She was super cool. So I was like,
you lived.
Yeah. I wasn't worried about it. It was a totally different type of loss.
When you lost your mother, what was that whole experience like? And I know it's more than just something you can summarize, but at age 11, what was that like being so young?
It was hard. She got diagnosed, or at least they told us that she had breast cancer. They sat down and had a talk with us about it when I was 9. So then it was like a 3-year battle. And that was an interesting and painful experience because I don't know. It was interesting in a way because for a while it brought us closer together. We knew, that something serious was happening and family was the most important thing to us.
Yeah.
And so we really made an effort to spend time together. I barely went to middle school. Everybody knew that wasn't the most important thing. And I look back on that and think, yeah, that was the correct decision.
You missed nothing. You learned nothing in middle school.
And then it was painful because, she would sometimes be doing a lot better and get good news. And for a little bit, she was in remission and we were super excited. And she talked about like the fake boobs she was going to get. It was really, and then she had a relapse and it got into her lymph nodes. It was really long and drawn out, and we had to like bring her hospital bed into our living room. And my whole family, she has lots of brothers and sisters, and so all the aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody was in our house for like the last month, constantly bringing in new casseroles and like taking care of her. And I felt like I mourned her as the process went on, and that by the time she passed away, it was more of a relief than like a sadness or a loss. It was more, I knew she was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And it was time for her to go, as much as an 11-year-old can understand that.
That's the crazy part for me to realize, because at age 11, I don't think most of us have any clue what's happening in the world. We're growing boobs, we're dealing with hormones, like maybe we like boys or girls, like we don't really know. And here you are dealing with like a significant situation and also emotion that's coming into your life, emotions that you probably never felt before, that most people maybe don't feel for the next 10, 20, 30 years of their life. So, after you lost your mother, what was the next couple of years like for you? What was age 12 and 13 like?
Really hard. My mom was the breadwinner in the house, and she was the boss of the house. My dad, she used to joke that he was like another one of her kids. And so it was different. There was a whole dynamic shift, and things changed quickly. My dad bought a restaurant. I think he had wanted to buy a restaurant when she was alive, but she realized that's very difficult investment to make work. I mean, restaurants are one of the most common businesses to fail. But he bought a restaurant. It was a hot dog place called the Wienery.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sounds delicious, but I'm sure it wasn't so fun to work there.
I worked, that was one of my first jobs. I worked behind the register. He was like, he was like, we're going to eat at the wienery now, you know, like buying less groceries. And like it was like very 90s sitcom dad way of raising kids.
Girls too, right?
Yeah. All girls. And I got closer with my sisters. I have two older sisters who are my half sisters, but they're my dad's kids from his first marriage, and I think that they picked up a lot of the slack because, well, sorry, it's hard describing all of this.
I'm sure.
I'm usually on the other side of this conversation, and it has been a while since I've really delved into what it was like. But my sisters, when my mom passed away, they got us all these necklaces that had an angel on them, and it had like a little ruby on the back, and it was just to signify that our mom was always with us. And then when my father passed away, they got us these rings that I still wear to this day. It's our sister ring, and on the inside it has all of our initials and our last name. And it's like, even though your parents have passed away, you still have a family. And it is something I come back to a lot, that even though I lost my parents, I still have 4 sisters. That's larger. That's a lot larger of a family than a lot of people who even have their parents.
Yeah. It's like a sorority almost, you know? Yes. It's like a lot of women.
A lot of women.
Yeah.
A lot of drama.
Yeah.
But a lot of closets.
Yes, a lot of clothes.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. You know, again, I think this is a topic that I am fascinated by, which is death, and how it's not something people think about every day. You usually think about it when someone close to you passes away, or when you read something, you think about it. But at such a young age, losing both of your parents, what did death signify to you? Was it something that you were anxious about happening to yourself, or was it something that you were like, death happens, it could happen really quickly, because I know you lost your father very fast, or it can be something that you know is coming and it's inevitable? I mean, what sort of changed in the world of death for you?
That's interesting. A lot of the feelings when my mom passed away, I didn't really understand the feelings as they were happening because I was 11. But then they came more into focus after my father passed away because of the very different ways in which they passed. My mom was like a long, drawn-out cancer. My father, it was a quick heart attack. I didn't even know it was coming at all. And that type of passing was like, made me feel very angry and sad and like a large wave of feelings all at once, versus, you know, the sort of relief that I felt at my mom's passing. So death, I wasn't afraid of it per se. I just was very aware that it was a possibility. I think it definitely affected my depression when I was a kid. You did ask like how 12 and 13 was, and I was very depressed at that age. I was engaging in self-harm. I didn't know like how to deal with life. I knew that death was an option out, and without knowing all the other options at that young of an age, I think it sounded very appealing to me. Now, the way that I deal with those feelings is knowing that, yes, that is an option, but I should try everything else first, because that would be the last option. And I think, being exposed to that much death that young did alter the way I looked at those decisions.
Definitely. And do you feel like it impacted how you live your life, in the sense that, do you feel like life can be short, life can be long? None of us know. So did that ever change your method for living life?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely an uncertainty, I feel, in life. Yeah, it could be short or long or who knows. So you might as well do what you want now. You might as well move to Brazil. You might as well try being an exotic dancer. You might as well try stand-up comedy. Like, whatever it is you want to do. There's no guarantee of tomorrow, so.
It wakes you up. I lost somebody a couple weeks ago who it was very sudden, and ever since then, I've adopted this, like, everyone who knows me is laughing because all I say right now is life is fleeting. You just have to do what you have to do right now. Stop making excuses. Stop coming up with reasons why you can't. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, and I can only imagine at such a young age realizing that really maybe changed the course of your life to just get you to start living faster. I mean, did you feel like after you lost your dad at 16, you probably grew up very, very fast, I'm guessing, too?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear about that. That's unfortunate.
It's crazy, but, you know, it's just a reminder how life is so up in the air for everyone.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah, I did. I grew up very quickly after my father passed away. I was already I was starting a life on my own. Yeah. I was already living at my aunt's place when my dad passed away. I knew that I sort of needed to take care of myself. I knew that he hadn't really fully grieved my mom, and that he was still dealing with that. And so I needed to, at least for the meantime, take care of myself. I thought that would be not a permanent situation. I thought that I would get to, go back to him and we could figure it out once he had taken care of his emotions. So yeah, after my dad passed away, and then the next year I went to college. I went to college at 17, and I did feel suddenly very much on my own. That idea of grew up very fast. In some ways, absolutely, yes, I did. In other ways, because I didn't have anyone parenting me, I didn't. I missed some steps. I thought that I was growing up fast, but I wasn't. I was just flailing. I was trying to figure out coping tools, and I couldn't. I started drinking really heavily. I'm sober now, but I was trying to figure out tools to deal with all these feelings that I had, and I didn't know what to do with. And drinking worked. Yeah. For a while.
Oh, yeah. It could be your best friend for a good time. Yeah.
It can be really helpful for a little bit. But then eventually it didn't. Eventually it turned on me. It's a depressant. Yes. A depressant using a depressant person using a depressant as a tool is really just not the best idea.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's probably the one of the worst, but it's the easiest. A lot of people turn to it as well.
Well, it's legal. Yeah. It's easy to find.
It can be cheap.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah. And at college, you can find it anywhere as a young, pretty woman for free.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
50-cent beers. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, because I know that the topic of death and even losing a person is very, very, very hard. And sometimes the people around you, even the people who are just your friends, have trouble talking to you about it. So when you were going through everything you went through, what are some things that just you wish people did to talk to you about it? What did you wish they said to you? Because oftentimes people are like, I'm here if you need to talk. That's a common thing people throw out when you're going through some stuff. And that's not really, I'm here if you need anything. What is the right thing to say to a person who is grieving, who just lost somebody that they desperately loved?
I've thought about this many times, and I haven't really found that there is the right thing to say. I used to get so angry when people said, I'm sorry. It made me so angry. I was like, you had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like, that sucks. I'm on your side. I liked it when people who had dealt with similar things would talk to me about their experiences. Yeah. That's really helpful. But people who haven't dealt with similar things, I don't know. I don't know what to tell them is the right thing to say.
Do you just wish people said anything? Because some people retract. Some people pull away. If they see someone going through a hard time, they don't know what to do, so they say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So is it better for people sort of to say nothing, or do you just wish people would say anything?
Anything. I don't really like the reach out if you need someone, because that puts the onus on you to do the work to reach out to them. And you're like, I'm already dealing with a lot. Can you just come over with some like chicken noodle soup and a dumb cartoon?
Right.
That would be great.
Right. Or just like a hug, you
or
know.
A hug.
Yeah.
Anything. Anything is better than
putting the effort on the person.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's so true. With Daddyless Issues, you started this podcast earlier this year. What kind of guests do you have on the show?
We have comedians and artists. We're open to other type of guests, people who are just doing a good job in the world. Mm-hmm. We like creative people because we ourselves are creative people. We lean towards comedians because both Chanel and I are stand-up comics, and that's the world we know.
Yeah.
And also we know that there are a lot of stand-up comics. Like the majority, I feel, of stand-up comics didn't grow up with a two-parent household. They've had some sort of struggle that makes them want to get up on stage and talk by themselves.
Yep.
So that's who we lean towards, but we're open to anyone. We've had Monroe Martin. He was on MTV's Guy Code. Chanel herself is on this season of MTV's Girl Code.
Love that show.
Yeah. We've had, who have we had? We just, this week, the next episode coming out will be Ben Katzner, and then after that is Pamela Ray. Pamela Ray is a woman who does like this, she has a one-woman show that she takes all around the country. It's called What Makes Me Tick, and she has Tourette's, and she talks about that with kids all around the country at like summer camps and schools, and she's super funny, super cool. We've talked to street artists, anybody, yeah.
When people listen to your show, what do you want them to take from it?
I want them to feel inspired. I want them to feel like even if they are going through loss or have gone through loss, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way out, that they can keep moving forward. We start off the stories usually with, the loss that people have dealt with, and with inspirational talks to our younger selves. So it's, and Chanel usually ends with keep moving forward.
Yeah. And
I like that sentiment a lot. That it sounds cliche.
Yeah.
But it gets better.
I think that's the most true statement probably in the world, but at the time it's so hard for people to see.
It's hard.
It's almost impossible. Like that comes off as a lie, but I really believe nothing is truer than it gets easier, it gets better, And I really do believe that is so true for anyone going through anything, but it's very hard to convince yourself that is so.
Yeah.
In
the moment.
Oh God.
It feels like this feeling has been here for all eternity.
And you're never going to get out.
And you're never ever going to get out. But that's not true. That's just the monster in your head. That's
Yeah, it depends how big your monster is, because if it's big, you're going to have to fight it even harder, to truly believe that. What has this podcast done for you in terms of what you've learned by hearing other people's stories?
I really have opened up to the idea of my chosen family. Mm-hmm. I recently read a quote, and now I'm not going to remember who said it. I can send it to you later. But the quote is, there is your biological family, and then there's your logical family.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
That's so good.
I love it.
Yeah.
I know it was LGBT writer who said it in a memoir, and I just can't remember.
We'll link to it in the show notes, because that is such an amazing quote, and important for people to realize that too.
Yeah, you can make the decisions of who you want to have relationships with, and also your biological family. Even if there are some of them who are still there, they still need to earn a relationship with you.
So true. Just because someone's a relative of yours doesn't mean that they are close to you in any type of way at all.
Yeah.
You know, and I really do believe in the power of human beings, and sometimes meeting a person who you have such a strong connection with, who feels like a family member,
Absolutely.
you know, and it's just titles at the end of the day,
Yeah.
in a sense. So I love that. I have a quick lightning round to do with you before we end. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Just respond with whatever comes to your mind.
Oh, no. Okay.
The first question was, when you were a kid, what did you want to grow up to become?
Oh, I wanted to become a veterinarian.
Oh, very
I wanted
cool.
to take care of animals.
Would you still be into that or no?
I like animals a lot. My fiance is allergic to everything.
Oh, that just means you have to go visit animals now.
Yeah, I do. And there's like the Brooklyn Animal Rescue Center,
Yep.
Bark.
I love Bark.
They let you like volunteer and walk dogs, and that's really fun. So.
I do it all the time. I'll see you there because I'm always
nice.
creeping around there.
Nice.
What's your dream job now?
I would love to have my own late night TV show.
Oh, I'm cheering you on.
Yeah.
Next Samantha Bee right here, please. Fingers crossed.
I have 2 friends who work on that show. It is great.
Okay, well, hopefully you will go as a similar show to her, either before her or after her. That would be so cool. What advice would you give Amber at age 22 or 21 graduating from college?
Ooh, graduating from college was a hard year. Actually, I never quite finished graduating from college.
Love it. Even better.
So maybe, Amber, go to class. Stop drinking, go to class. And you like the things that you're learning. Please just go to class. You enjoy the classes once you get there.
What did you major in?
Rhetoric.
Okay, so maybe it's, you know.
The art of argument and persuasion.
That's
I
not
do
bad.
enjoy it, okay? I enjoy philosophy. I liked the things that I was reading, but I just didn't get there.
And you can still read them and not have to pay tuition now. So
yes.
College is a bit overrated sometimes.
It's true.
What's the number one thing you feel an urgent desire to accomplish this year?
I want someone else to be producing my podcast.
It's going to happen. And you're going to have a whole weight lifted off your shoulder.
It's going to be lovely.
My final question for you. Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so...
You're not getting any younger, so you might as well travel. I love traveling. I need to do it more.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Amber. Please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and the podcast.
You can find more about me on my website. I have my show dates and my social media and everything there at amberrollo.com, AMBERROLLO.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram at AmberCRollo. And you can find all the information about the podcast, Daddyless Issues, on its website, daddylessissues.com, DADDLYISSUES.com. Sorry, I'm a little bit dyslexic.
Amazing.
I don't spell that one out very often.
We are going to link to all of this in the show notes on anyyounger.com so that you can find out when Amber's next shows are in New York City and listen to the podcast. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.